Okay, let's dive in. We're about to take a deep look into the most complex and powerful machine on the planet, your brain. We're going to uncover some of its hidden flaws, expose the modern forces that are constantly fighting for its attention, and, most importantly, figure out how to master it for a much better life. So let me just start by asking you a question. Do you feel like you are in complete control of your decisions and all of your thoughts? I mean, most of us would probably say, yeah, of course. But what if I told you that a lot of the time, they're actually being guided by something else, something hidden, operating deep, deep inside your mind? So these hidden forces? Psychologists have a name for them, cognitive mind traps. And here's the thing, they're basically hardwired mental shortcuts. Thinking errors that are built into all of us. You can't just flip a switch and turn them off. But just becoming aware that they exist, that's the absolute first, most critical step to becoming a clearer, more rational thinker. Okay, so here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to look inward at our own deceptive minds. Then we'll turn our attention to the outside world and the war for your focus. And after we've laid out the problems, we're going to explore two seriously powerful solutions: the 1% better system and the limitless mindset. All right, section 1, our deceptive minds. It's time to pull back the curtain and take a look at the hidden biases that are secretly shaping how you see the world every single day. First up, let's talk about something called the anchoring effect. You know how our brains tend to just latch on to the very first piece of information we get? Well, that's this. It uses that first thing as a mental anchor for every decision that comes after, even if that first piece of information is totally, completely random. And the power of this effect is, well, it's pretty startling. Get this. In one study, they took a group of experienced German judges. These guys had an average of 15 years on the bench, and asked them to sentence a shoplifter. But before they did, they had them roll a pair of dice. Now, these dice were loaded to only land on a 3 or a 9. The judges who rolled a 9, they gave an average sentence of 8 months. But the ones who rolled a 3, just 5 months. A completely random number totally swayed their professional judgment. Isn't that wild? And this just goes to show, this isn't some weird lab experiment. It happens all the time in real life. Think about it. The first price a car salesman throws at you, the initial salary offer in a negotiation, the asking price of a house. All of these are anchors. They're designed to set the terms of the conversation and tilt it in their favor right from the start. Okay, let's move on to the next mind trap. And this one is a biggie: confirmation bias. Here's the deal. Our brains are kind of lazy. They don't like hard work, and changing our beliefs, that is really hard work. So what do? We tend to actively look for information that confirms what we already believe. And at the same time, we conveniently filter out, well, pretty much anything that might challenge those beliefs. The Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman, really nailed the danger of this. He said that when we hear the same things over and over and over again, especially inside our own social media echo chambers, our brain starts to mistake that feeling of familiarity for the actual truth. It just reinforces our biases and makes it incredibly difficult to even consider a different point of view. So, okay, our own minds have these internal traps we have to watch out for, but that's really only half the battle. Now we get to section 2, the war for your focus. In this part, we're going to look at all the powerful external forces out there that are fighting to steal our most valuable resource, our attention. And right at the heart of this war is a conflict between two very different types of work. First, you've got deep work. That's when you're in a state of totally distraction-free concentration on a really demanding task. It's where you create real, meaningful value. And then there's shallow work. This is, well, it's all the other stuff. The logistical tasks, usually done while you're distracted, like answering emails, or just mindlessly scrolling through your feed. And here's the problem. Our days are just packed with constant invitations to do shallow work. Every time you switch from a deep task to a shallow one, even if it's just for a quick glance at your phone, you create this thing called attention residue. It's like a part of your mind is still stuck on the last thing you were doing. This just fractures your focus and completely cripples your ability to perform at your best. So to fight back, we've got to name our enemies, right? And there are 4 big digital villains of our time. First, digital deluge. That's the information overload, where we're basically consuming a lifetime of info in a single day. Then there's digital distraction with our phones and devices that are always on. Next is digital dementia, which is what happens when we outsource our memory to our gadgets. And finally, digital deduction, where we just let technology do all our thinking for us. All right, so we've identified the challenges, both internal and external. And yeah, it might sound a little grim, but this is where we pivot to the solutions. So let's dive into Section 3, the 1% Better System. This is a framework for achieving absolutely incredible results through tiny, consistent changes. And the very first step here is a massive mental shift. You ready? Forget about goals. Seriously, goals are about the results you want to accomplish, but systems are about the processes that actually lead to those results. Think about it. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals. What separates them isn't the goal, it's the system of continuous small improvements they follow. And hey, if you need proof, just look at the math. If you can get just 1% better every single day, the magic of compounding takes over. And after 1 year, you're not just 365% better, you are nearly 38 times better. It's just astonishing proof that these tiny, almost invisible improvements are what lead to truly remarkable long-term change. So how do we actually build these systems? Well, it all comes down to understanding the habit loop. Every single habit you have follows these 4 simple steps. First, there's a cue, which is the trigger, then the craving, that's the motivation. Next is the response, the habit itself, and finally, the reward, which gives you that hit of satisfaction and tells your brain, hey, this loop is worth remembering. So if you want to build a good habit, you just have to hack this loop. Make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward super satisfying. Now, having a great system is absolutely crucial, but it's not going to work without the right foundation. And that brings us to our final section, the limitless mindset. This one is all about breaking the invisible chains of our own self-imposed beliefs. I want you to think about this incredible story. Picture a fully grown elephant, an animal strong enough to literally rip a tree from the ground. But this elephant remains tied to a tiny little stake. Why? Because when it was just a baby, that small stake was enough to hold it back. It basically learned helplessness. It formed this powerful, limiting belief that it couldn't break free. And it carries that belief for the rest of its life, never even bothering to test the rope. So the question is, how many of us are just like that elephant, held back by beliefs that are totally outdated? The antidote to this is a process called unlimiting. It's the conscious act of just casting aside these restrictive ideas and embracing the reality that our potential is not fixed. It's about realizing that what's holding you back isn't actually your capability, it's your belief about your capability. Napoleon Hill put this perfectly in his book, Think and Grow Rich. He said that our thoughts are things. They literally create our reality. And when you can combine a powerful, limitless thought with a definite purpose and just a burning desire to achieve it, you basically magnetize your mind to attract the exact circumstances you need to succeed. So, here's the ultimate takeaway from all of this. Mastering your mind isn't some one-time fix. It's not about becoming perfect or suddenly immune to bias and distraction. Nope, it's a continuous process of simply being aware of the mind traps, aware of those digital villains, and then consistently applying the right systems and the right mindset to navigate through it all. And that brings us to the end. I'm just going to leave you with one final question to really think about. After everything we've talked about today, from the anchoring effect and attention residue to those limiting beliefs, what is the one single mental chain that you are going to decide to break free from starting today?